Challenges for independent Mexico. While Mexicans had won independence, they faced new challenges. For many decades, their leaders struggled to solve the nation's problems. Troubled beginnings. After the United States won independence, its new government struggled. In a few years, though, Americans wrote a new constitution that brought stability. The same did not happen in Mexico. The Mexican people did write a constitution, but different leaders were competing for power. For the first few decades of Mexico's existence as a nation, they could not create a stable government. Different individuals made different social contributions to Mexican society during its history. One who tried to do so was Benito Juarez. In the mid-1800s, Juarez became the leader of Mexico. He promised to make many changes that would help the nation's poor. Juarez promised to break up the large estates that the wealthy held and give some of this land to poor farmers. Juarez's reforms were an important attempt to make a social contribution. However, some Mexicans resented the changes Juarez made because they would lose wealth and power. They sought help from France. The French government sent an army that defeated Juarez. Then France made the Austrian Archduke Maximilian the ruler of Mexico. He tried to bring peace to the nation, but Juarez's supporters fought on. After several more years of fighting, Maximilian was overthrown. Back in power, Juarez was unable to make all the reforms he wanted. Texas and the Mexican-American War. As you have read, Mexico controlled much of what is now the western and southwestern United States, including Texas and California in the early 1800s. It lost this territory in the 1840s and 1850s. First, Texas fought a revolution and became an independent country. Texas was later annexed to the United States. This strained relations between the United States and Mexico. The United States and Mexico went to war in 1846. American armies occupied what is now California and New Mexico and defeated Mexican armies. Another American army invaded Mexico by sea, and it eventually captured Mexico City. In 1848, Mexico signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Mexico recognized that Texas would be a part of the United States and that its border was at the Rio Grande River. The United States purchased much of what is now its southwest, including all of California and Nevada. It purchased a smaller area of land, now part of Arizona and New Mexico, in 1853. Mexico under Diaz. From the 1870s to 1911, Mexico's leader was Porfirio Diaz. At first, he tried to put in place many of the reforms of Juarez. He also tried to build Mexico's economy by inviting foreign companies to build railroads and do other projects. Only a small number of Mexicans benefited, though. The great majority of people still lived in poverty. They worked long hours and had few rights and little food. Mexican Revolution. Unrest spread. Finally, in 1910, the candidate for president that Diaz supported lost the election to an opponent. Diaz had the opponent arrested and declared his man the winner. This action, along with Mexico's history of widespread poverty, sparked the Mexican Revolution, a period of armed rebellion in which Mexican people fought for political and social reform. The Constitution of 1917. The fighting eased in 1917 when a new constitution was declared. The new constitution made the government responsible for improving Mexicans' lives. It declared the goal of giving land to poor farmers and more rights to workers. Tiano Carranza became president of Mexico, but did not make many of the constitutional changes he promised. In a few years, leaders joined to overthrow him. In the next few decades, Mexico's leaders made some reforms, but the poor continued to suffer.